Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel, where we're continuing with the Last JabroniCon. And I just noticed that Polly People gave me a little shout out earlier today, which surprises me because I had no idea she was aware that this channel even existed. But I just want to do reciprocate there. So hang on. Drop the link in chat for trans leftist creator Polly People, who apparently has heard of me, which amazes me. I'm not sure how that ever happened. But neat. Thanks, Polly. So, right. Now, we had left off yesterday where, Ian Kuczynski, Vush, was busy not knowing shit about Africa and not letting it stop him make very confident pronouncements about Africa. So, I remember somebody saying they wanted to see that to the end. But we've got some other options here, and I just want to go through them. We got Xander Hole talking about how the Young Turfs has fallen because of their feud with Vush, which is like, that's why? Let's see what else we got. Oh, there was a new channel. I believe I included this in here. Let me get back down to the bottom where all the new stuff is. Some channel, this showed up in my recommendations. This is the sort of thing that happens when you stream the sort of shit that I stream. Some channel I've never heard of called Wokepedia. It has a video called "Why is Marxism Attractive? And even to Christians?" And it seems like that might be an interesting watch. MSNBC, this is Pim Tool. Oh, Pim Tool coping with how Endingle lost his bullshit case against anti-fascists in Portland. Women will become conservative because they want to date conservative men. Like, which of course you can totally see how that's realistic, because I mean, if there's one thing that you always hear right-wing guys complaining about, it's how there are just so many fucking women who are just constantly nagging them for a date, and not say how they can't get laid because nobody seems to like them. I mean, so I'm kind of curious about that. So how you doing over there, chat? Who's in there? Who's watching? I think we're gonna warm up with this, women will become conservative because they want to date conservative men. I'm just in the mood for it. We can always come back to the Niger thing later on if people want to. But for now, we're going to look at Pim Tool explaining how actually the thing about right-wing guys is that everyone wants to fuck them. Never mind that he's done like 10 other videos which are about how hard it is for right-wing guys to get laid. Now it's about how women are going to become reactionary. In fact, let's leave that aside. Like, one of the things that has just been a constant theme amongst women on the far right is how they actually kind of low-key hate the men on the far right, because the men on the far right are on the far right in large part because they hate women.
Extremely conservative nowadays.
Right. Oh yeah. That's 2 days ago.
Yeah, and
Wait.
men are leaning extremely conservative nowadays.
Right.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, and what that means for the future and stuff. If you have
And we're gonna talk about the future and stuff.
women that don't look to get married, and you don't have a revival of um conservative values or traditional values among women the same way that you do among young men, because if you look at that graph or whatever.
See, this isn't sounding. I feel like Tim Pool might have done me a little mislead with this headline, because what this guy who totally does not look like a serial killer seems to be saying is that the problem for right-wing guys is they're repulsive to women.
They had never been further apart, men and women. Their political leanings. Women are voting. Women exclusively, young unmarried women are keeping the Democrat Party alive. Every other.
That's not actually true.
It seems like every other group is actually voting for, or is at least not strongly Democrat.
Which is kind of funny, because actually this is the opposite of the reality, and Republicans actually know it, which is why they consider vote suppression to be such an important electoral strategy for them. Because the thing about Republicans is, going back like fucking decades, they're in the minority. Nobody likes them. Nobody will admit to, like, only a minority will admit to voting for them. Hello, Adria. So there isn't this huge number. See, this is part of their grift. They have to pretend that there's like this silent majority or something like that, when in reality, they're actually a very small minority.
And it's, at the end of the day, that if men can't make families, then they make war.
No, this my prediction here is
really
that the Democrats are done. The Democrats are done with this metric, showing that
With what metric?
12th grade boys are like, what is it, like 4-1 conservative, and the women are like.
Okay, where is the? Okay, I'm sure citation needed almost seems churlish. Okay, this seems to be from Fox News. Monitoring the Future survey. Let me see. Let's see what this actually says. Data products. Cross-sectional databases. Monitoring the future. Restricted. Wait, where are the actual tables and figures? There we go. That's what I'm looking for. 1975 to 2022 data for in-school surveys of 8th, 10th, and 12th grade students. Skip 11th grade for some reason. Trends by reporting. Okay, drug use. Drug attitudes. Okay, all sorts of shit about drugs. Oh yeah, I mean, none of them are. They're all just exactly the sort of guys that when you hear footsteps behind you at night, you hope it's them. Trends by reporting interval drug attitudes. Wait a second, where is this fucking... Okay, I'm looking at this thing right now, and trying to find where this survey is. Okay, publications. Let's see what maybe publications has articles, research reports, maybe? Because I've seen this thing about the 12th grade boys supposedly being more right-wing or something like that. And I have had my questions, because that seems like that may, in fact, not be quite the finding that it is presented as. Okay, a chart surfaced in spring to suggest it. As with many... Okay, The Hill, which is by no means any kind of, like, lefty communist rag. Let me just drop the link in chat. Here's what... So you can see what I'm seeing. As with many Reddit posts and viral tweets, the truth was more complicated, but the numbers do say this. 12th grade boys are nearly twice as likely to identify as conservative versus liberal, according to a respected federal survey of American youth. Now, the first question there is, what were their options? Because were they told you can... I mean, because I've actually conducted some surveys in my day, and a lot of the time it'll be, do you identify as liberal, conservative, or neither liberal nor conservative? And, you know, no option to specifically say, no, motherfucker, I'm a communist. Okay, so political identities of 12th grade boys. Percent identifying as liberal or conservative. In 2022, 13% identified as liberal, and a whopping 23% identified as conservative. Now, let's just do a little bit of quick math here. 13 plus, let me just make sure I got that right. 13 plus 23 is... That's right, 36. Which means that fucking 64% aren't even represented in those numbers. Okay, so what's... Okay, what was the option... Where's the fucking data table that tells me what the other fucking 64% say, though? Because I went to... monitoring the future results, and I got nothing. I mean, what I want is their data. What I want is their data tables to show me what the question was, because that sounds like... Okay, so what this sounds like something that happens at the electoral level as well, which is another bullshit forced choice situation that is often interpreted, that people interpret the shit out of in order to come up with trends that actually do not get reflected in available studies of actual political opinions of the population. See, because... Just because you have fewer people identifying as liberal out of the 36% of the respondents who identified as either liberal or conservative, that does not mean that those people are getting more conservative. That could very well mean, and we see this specifically in the elections, that a lot of the people who are... A lot of the leftmost people... are electorally homeless. There's no actual electoral option for them, so they don't vote. So they're not identifying. So it sounds like 64% identify as neither liberal nor conservative, knowing these studies. Let me see, does it ever say? Okay. The rightward drift of high school boys is comparatively subtle. Indeed, when it comes to politics, most boys seem reluctant to pick a side, which again suggests that they are doing neither liberal nor conservative. The largest group... Oh, yeah, here we go. In the 2022 Monitoring the Future survey, that's the survey we're talking about, the largest group of senior boys, more than 2/5, claim no politics at all, which is not actually what it says. They answered the liberal-conservative question with none of the above or I don't know. Well, you need to break that down, because again, I would answer that with none of the above too, and it's not because I have no politics at all, it's because, survey writers, you don't give the options that would allow me to accurately answer. Only 36% selected... yeah, so this is a non-trend, is what we're getting at. This is an end. Hey, konnichiwa, the heirlooms, Adashi. どちらのご出身なんですか? はじめまして. 갈매기 경로에 어서 오시라요. Okay, so what we've established here is that what he's talking about is bullshit. This is I kind of figured when I started hearing this that this was going to turn out to be a bullshit right-wing narrative of the sort that the media love to do, misrepresenting polling results, and that is exactly what it is. The number of actual 12th grade boys who identify as conservative is fuck all.
I think it's 3-1 liberal. Those young women will be conservative in 5 years.
I don't think there's any conflict.
No, they
between
won't.
What you're saying and what I'm saying, because you're saying the Democrats are done probably
because those
of
women
voting.
in 5 years will be conservative.
I'm saying that young men that don't have the option of starting families, they won't end up with families because
日本の方ですか?
they're if you look at the numbers that the guy that this video presented don't line up with that at all. But
Oh yeah, the numbers don't line up with any of what you're trying to say, either of you, actually. The numbers say that a tiny minority of guys in like the age 17 to 18 is willing to identify with your ideology, and you're trying to make a meal of it because you know that's actually a lot for you people. For right-wingers, they see 20%, and it's like, motherfucker, we're on top.
We're going to have families, and I'll tell you why. It's because men are object-oriented and women are subject-oriented, and they...
Oh, wow, he's gonna... These guys are gonna explain what women want again.
Young women who have strong emotional desires for socializing, men, with...
So why are they gonna decide to be with the 23% of right-wing dickheads? And that's assuming that these 17 to 8-year-olds stay that way. Like, some people actually do move left over, with age. Do I think Poole is literate? I haven't seen any evidence of it. But, I mean, that's also kind of a bit he does. And occasionally, he has said things suggesting that it is a very conscious bit that he does, rather than him actually not knowing anything. That he does in fact know better than to say the things that he says. So, okay. So 23% of these 12th grade boys in this survey identify as conservative. So that is 77% of 12th grade boys who don't, Tim. So why the fuck are they going to be becoming more reactionary in order to be with the 23% when they've got the 77% who aren't?
With men are going to start to be pulled in the men's direction, not the other way around.
But isn't the problem that this, I mean, you're saying 5 years, but that's basically their senior year of college. And the reason that women are predominantly Democrat
Oh, wow. I mean, I'm glad we got him. So we got at least...
voters is because they're also the predominant college attendees. They're the
We're
people
not
that are
gonna
going.
Oh, well, and also because the Democrats have pretended to be in support of reproductive freedom and stuff. And the Republicans are just very openly misogynist.
And they're going to be saddled with massive debt and unable to live on their own.
So they have to. So they're
Well, yeah, which is like just kind of the way these things are at the moment. And you've got entire generations who are saddled with massive debt and dealing with that.
going to have to appeal to the conservative, construction worker.
It's not that they have to. It's
Yeah, in fact, they really don't. They've got a whole lot of options that don't require them to hate themselves.
that women are going to go out. What are the tropes and the stereotypes?
Well, I mean, I'm glad this is a question that the Tim Pool studio participants can definitely answer. If there's any group of people I trust to come up with gender-related tropes and stereotypes, it's Tim Pool and his collection of really dodgy-looking white guys.
Women talk about men. Men talk about things.
Yeah, except that's bullshit. Women don't talk about men exclusively, and men don't just talk about things. I mean, yeah, it's a trope that there's all sorts of sloppy writing where you have... That's why there's the fucking Bechdel test and stuff like that, where the idea is to actually have women who talk about something other than men. Like, do these guys get all of their information on this from movies? I asked a silly question. Of course they do. These motherfuckers aren't getting laid.
A tendency that women are more interested in social interactions between men and women, and men are interested in their goals or whatever, women will be seeking ways to interact with men.
And actually, the thing is that when you actually look at the available information on who's really interested in marriage, for example, overwhelmingly, and this is another long-term thing, it's men. Women actually are, statistically tend to take a much more casual approach to that because they got other stuff and they know, like, getting married in this society means getting saddled with basically, like, suddenly you're doing housekeeping for two because men get married and a lot of them decide that this means that they can just be a fucking cyst on a couch when they get home and not actually contribute at all to the household. And so actually there's a lot more, so men actually see marriage as a better deal than women do. And you can tell this also just looking at these guys, because they are obsessed with, you know, these men aren't going to get married because all these women think they're repulsive because they're horrible, and all this stuff.
I don't see there's going to be a scenario, and we already see it now in the data, where you have young men who are Democrats, and it appears to be because they're what biologists call, and again, this is a legitimate, literal term, sneaky fuckers.
What the fuck did he just say?
What biologists call, and again, this is a legitimate, literal term, sneaky fuckers. This is the actual biological term.
So his idea is that the only reason anyone has any political views is to get laid, because if that were true, there would be no right-wing men, because you just listen to these motherfuckers. Like, Tim Pool alone has got like 5 different videos, 5 different long streams, where he laments about how it's impossible for right-wing guys to get laid. So, and here he is admitting it again. He's saying that that they're sneaky fuckers. And I'm really kind of amazed that he swore on his own stream, because he's such a fucking coward. He claims to be like this free speech warrior, but he won't say anything that might possibly get him demonetized, even though he has admitted that he's got a guy at Google he could just call up when he gets demonetized to get his monetization turned back on, no matter what he's done to get demonetized. But, so if men are being, if the only reason men are pretending to be more liberal is to get laid, then doesn't that suggest that maybe women just don't want to sleep with right-wing guys? And I wonder why that would be.
Biologists use the term sneaky fucker to describe a situation where you say you have the alpha male.
Oh, I've heard about this.
Said today in terms biologists definitely don't use, because alpha male is a term that came from the mistake of studying wolves only in captivity, and it turned out when you studied wolves who weren't in captivity, the concept didn't make any sense.
Fucker sneaks in the middle of the night, bangs the women to procreate. So you have the man who bangs on his chest and roar and lifts muscles and attracts women, and then you have the sneaky fucker who sneaks in.
So what you're saying, though, is that the women like the sneaky fucker better, because otherwise, if the idea is that he is using some sort of deception and stealth in order to get laid, he wouldn't be using that particular deception.
And weasels his way.
Yeah,
that's the male feminist. That's the male feminist.
Hello, Demand Better Entertainment. I feel like I've seen you in here before, but if I haven't, welcome. We're looking at 3 guys misinterpreting a study that showed that, like, 23% of 12th grade boys identified as conservative against, 77% who didn't. And and Tim Pool is here saying that because almost a quarter of 12th grade boys in one survey identified as conservative, that means that within 5 years, all women will be moving to the right in order to sleep with the less than 1/4 of right-wing guys.
Right.
But with young men skewing more and more conservative,
More
if
and
women
more.
want to have these social interactions with men, they're going to have to meet men where they're going.
There's not
And
enough women that want to.
So okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, see, this is the realist in the room.
Thing is-
Oh wait, there is one woman in there apparently. Holy shit, they got one woman in there, and
I don't think you understand what they want. The fact that
did he just tell the woman she doesn't understand what women want?
can see social contagion on Instagram, young women developing Tourette's. It's not an issue of women coming together and having a women's meeting and being like, we're not going to listen to these men.
Yeah, we don't need to have a women's meeting to decide that we're not going to listen to these men. You just have to hear it works kind of like a vaccination, a good one. Because you hear what these men have to say, and it's like, yeah, why the fuck would I listen to these pricks?
It's that they're going to be talking about the guys they like.
Well, it's nice to see you in chat. Where are you joining us from, and how'd you find me? I always like to know because so few people find me. And so it's just always nice to know how people are finding their way to me.
And all the guys are going to be conservative. So something's going to have to...
What do you mean all the guys? The study, they haven't looked at the study. Because the study does not say anything near all the guys. It's 23% of 12th grade boys.
Break, where the women are talking to each other, and they're going to be like, but he's not woke. And they're like, there's no other guy!
Except for the 77% who aren't right-wingers.
All the guys at school, the athletes, the musicians, the rock stars, the writers, they're all skewing conservative.
Except that, again, no, that's not what the study says. It's, all but 77% of the guys are skewing conservative.
Any woman who wants to date a guy is going to be dating a guy who's moderate to conservative. And then they're going to have to start listening to these other women who are going to be saying things like, well, you're dating this far-right guy. And they'll be like, who are you dating? Nobody?
And they'll say, well, we're dating each other. It's better.
Yeah.
Not a single person?
Well, I think it's going to depend on if they want to have families, because I've never really understood why you would date a left-leaning man when it comes to starting a family.
Okay. Again, there's one woman. We heard her voice very briefly. She did not get to have an entire sentence. See, this is why these guys are mostly talking about how impossible it is for right-wing guys to get laid. Oh well, I don't get to do as much fighting as I feel like I really ought to be doing, but I try. I try to do what's, at the very least, to fight the bullshit. I'm stuck in the middle of nowhere here. The pandemic kind of stranded me, so my options are limited at the moment. But yeah, I mean, I try. There are other people who do a hell of a lot more than me, but at the very least, I can provide the option. Oh, hey, hello. So, okay, you come from Polly, and now I'm very curious, because I had no idea Polly was even aware my channel existed, and I saw she gave me a shout-out 4 hours ago, and I didn't even stream on this channel 4 hours ago. So I'm wondering, can you tell me what the origin story of this cool shout-out is? And thank her from me if you're in her stream before I am, which is entirely possible because I don't work so much I don't actually get to watch Twitch much. Welcome, Raven.
Because so rarely are they actually on that path anyways. So I'm surprised this trend hasn't already reverted where women, as they get...
See, and the thing is, when you're surprised that by something like this, that just shows you don't know what the fuck's going on. Because I wasn't surprised by that result. I was surprised by the claims that there was some huge number of 12th grade boys claiming to be right-wingers. That surprised me. It surprised me because every single piece of data that I've seen, and this is like public opinion data, the real stuff, where they actually talk to people about issues rather than, who are you gonna vote for? Because, I mean, the only answer to that is, like, either you're gonna vote for a piece of shit or you're not gonna vote. And it doesn't, you can look at the data tables in the really good studies, and look at the questions that are asked and the answers and the demographics and stuff like that. And when you do that, nothing actually in the, in terms of social political developments is fundamentally surprising anymore. Because actually, I mean, people's attitudes have remained consistent on a lot of things, despite huge propaganda onslaughts.
Into their late 20s or early 30s, they start to pursue more conservative-leaning men because they want to have kids.
Women become more conservative after they get married. And I think culturally right now, marriage is not...
Well, that's actually not true. What is more true, see, I mean, where she's coming from is that there were like some studies that came out a few years ago and said that, women have all these sorts of ideas when they're single about, equality in the household, and then when they get married, they don't do that. And the problem with that, the way that the media portrayed that, is it's not the same women saying these things. In fact, the women who are taking that sort of more egalitarian approach to running a home or something like that, where everybody's going to share in it equally according to their ability, they're also less likely to be getting married. They're more likely to be pursuing other forms of cohabitation. The women who specifically want to get married, rather than like live with somebody or have some other kind of relationship, there is a higher percentage of right-wingers in that group.
Not a priority for men or women. I think that there are a lot of...
Oh, hey, the video... Was it the video about the chess, about women's chess?
Who should prioritize, but I think in both spheres there are men who are like, I'm conservative, but I'm going to put off getting married or whatever else.
Oh, well, they don't have to put off getting married. They have trouble finding women, as this very channel has explained quite a few times. Right-wing guys repel women. It's women repellent with their ideology.
It's true in both spaces. Both men and women should want marriage for it to become a more noteworthy trend. I will say, you have to remember that after 2016, there were all these feminist journalists who came out saying, I can remember one article specifically being like, I keep sleeping with this Trump supporter and I can't stop. Like, he's everything I hate, but I really want to sleep with him. So,
yeah, but that doesn't... And notice that she did not change her views just because of that. And also, just because one anecdote exists doesn't mean it's a fucking trend. Because the thing is, most of the time, when you run across... There are self-selection points. And when you ended up sitting across from somebody on a date and it turns out they're really reactionary, what that means is there's probably not going to be another fucking date. And if she married this guy, already knowing that he's kind of reactionary enough that he would eventually support fucking Trump, then probably she's already made her peace with that. Although I can't possibly imagine it's because he's any good in bed.
like, there is obviously something to what
Story
women
of
are
my life.
Yeah, that happens all the time. Can't stop sleeping. Anyways,
I can't stop sleeping with Trump supporters.
male
I
Trump
wish-
supporters
I w-
specifically.
Namely himself.
I wish I could stop, but I
So,
can't.
no, but it's interesting because I think there is a desire among women.
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw this article she's talking about, but it means nothing. It means less than nothing. It's like one media amplified voice. Aww. Well, that's okay. Well, thank you. I'm glad you're here. I love it when new people are here, and I just kind of amazed because I think that Casey Explosion raided me into Polly's channel once a long, long time ago, and I was in there, and then it was like time for me to eat something because I'd been working on stuff and chatting in Casey's channel all the time. By the way, if you're looking for a gaming channel that is just wholesome as all fuck and has amazing recommendations, check out Casey Explosion on Twitter. I mean Twitch. Yeah. Yeah, well, a libertarian socialist is just an anarchist. The thing is, libertarian what happened with the term libertarian in English-speaking countries is a guy by the name of Murray Rothbard co-opted it and turned it into its exact opposite. But if you look up libertarian or the equivalent in other languages, in French, libertaire, libertario, libertario, depending on what, libertaire in German, it always refers to as some kind of anarchist who is a socialist or a communist. In the U.S., right-wingers co-opted the term, so it creates confusion. And I believe Bush used to call himself a libertarian socialist as well, and I think that was him profiting from that confusion.
For traditionally male attributes.
What's the point of having their names on the wall if the names are so low down that their chairs block them?
Way that's undeniable. So the majority of women in every age group, every generation right now identifies as a feminist, right? It's something like between 53 to 67% in every generation. But obviously that's not true for the number of men who identify as a male feminist. So how do they partner up? It either means that they're feminists in name only, they're willing to give it up, and when they get married, they again...
Well, except that not all of them are getting married. I mean, that's the thing. That's the problem with this sort of nonsense. Oh, okay. It sounded like you were, okay, I'm sorry. It sounded like you were saying you had heard the term and you had not previously, and you weren't familiar with it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to assume that. I feel like he at the very least, there was a Twitter thread where he announces that he's going to stop calling himself an anarchist because he's sick of anarchists. And somebody replied, that's good because you never seem to believe in it and you never even seem to know what the hell it meant. But that was a while back. I haven't heard him call himself that. I only watch this stuff when I'm on this stream. I don't, make a habit of it because I like my life. Well, I mean, my life could use some improvements, but that would not be an improvement to my life. Watching more Vosh than I need to do reacts on stream and shit would not be an improvement to my life, or more fucking Pim Tool.
Lots of couples become more...
Most women are, if I understand correctly, most women are not super
You do not understand correctly. I think we can just assume that.
committed to politics. Like, they're more interested in, their life.
I think there's a huge...
Yeah, because if there's one thing that power and how it is exercised does not affect, it's our lives.
Spectrum, right? And, I think women do talk about men. They also just generally are more interested in social dynamics. And that is one of the benefits of having women in society, is they're going to tell you who's fighting and all sorts of things. I mean, remember the stereotype of the powerful businessman whose wife then throws a dinner party where he networks with whoever, right? Like, there is a positive symbiotic relationship between men and women in traditionally gendered roles. I think the trend of teenage boys becoming more conservative,
which is really, it is a non-trend. 23%. The real interesting thing about this is how many of them decline to identify either way. That is the thing. And and this is where the weakness of so many of these surveys are. They just assume that the only ways people are going to identify is the ways you're told you're allowed to identify on the television. So, either you're liberal or you're conservative or you're nothing. But I mean, if marketing decisions are any guide, the people behind Teen Vogue have clearly sussed that there's something going on around girls and young women that they want to read about, the IWW and what communism is from a sympathetic perspective. And I haven't seen the marketing research that went into that decision myself, but it seems like they probably would not have made that decision lightly because no fucking media outlet would. So I tend to think that actually what's happening is you're getting a lot of people who just reject both of those terms, not because they're confused, not because they're apolitical, but because they identify as something and it's not on these fucking lists.
Will inspire some teenage girls to be more openly conservative, but I think generally it's always on the cusp anyway. So
There's,
if they're
there's population
The cusp
collapse
of
coming
what?
from multiple
Oblivion?
countries. It's happening in the West. We've got like what 1.2 or something like that kids per couple per person. There's a population collapse coming. There's a significant.
Well, and isn't it funny that you complain about the population collapse, and then you go on here and shit on refugees? Like, if there's a population collapse, the fact that there are all these refugees trying, like, risking their lives to get into Europe and the U.S. is kind of sorting that, if that's the problem that you claim to have. But instead, they're so fucking racist that they will talk about a population collapse, which is, and then at the same time, shit on refugees and migrants.
Portion of women that don't ever want to get married. The people that.
but men too. I mean,
Except there are way more women who don't want to get married than men.
I think
But it's not. But it's not as pronounced with men because men don't like women look for like specific things in guys. Guys look for women.
No. What, you think that men will just sort of latch on to the first... This guy's telling us a lot right now. Mr. Panel Van with like some banging coming from the inside here is telling us a lot about how he thinks about women.
Like it's real different what women are looking for in a man
but
and what a man
there's
is
no
looking
incentive for men to get married right now, really.
Well, I mean, except the usual incentives.
Like, you could partner up with a girl, you could have her move in, you could pay for her, you guys could have a bunch of kids. Like, for women, they don't want to get married because they think in some way they'll be oppressed, but actually there are
Which is true.
all sorts of legal and financial reasons for women to want marriage.
Except that there are all sorts of reasons, as you just noted, for women not to. And for men to want, because the thing is, it's a reciprocal thing. The reasons, it turns out, that that women are less likely to want to get married, specifically, and the reasons men are more likely to, are the reciprocals of each other. Because for women, it generally means way more work, completely disproportionate share of the domestic labor, often with absolutely no recognition, and certainly no pay and no pension, as George Carlin once remarked. Whereas for men, it's like they go from maybe, having to clean up after them, cook and clean for themselves, to not even having to do that.
It's complete brainwashing. So, unless men are also loudly speaking about why marriage is good, we'll just continue down this trend of girls being like, I don't think so.
Well, except the thing is, the problem is, the reasons that men would say that marriage is good are precisely the reason that a lot of women say, actually, I'm not interested.
Except for this new cultural element, which is that men are starting to be more openly conservative at a younger age.
Well, this is a bit of a tangent, but I think it's important
A bit of a tangent on the Tim Pool cast? That would be a new thing.
to consider. Japan and there's other nations where you've seen these kind of population implosions. China too, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It's quite evident that the United States is in that, as well as most of Western Europe and things like that. I'm not at all convinced that we aren't going to just kind of spiral into that. Like, I know
that was the point that I was trying to make in the first place. Is like because of the way that the population or the marriage statistics and stuff are, and the number of young men that are not getting married and that aren't going to be. If you have young men that don't get into families, they get into fights, they get into trouble,
or they do other things, because the thing is, there is like more to life than that. It's not. I mean, there are plenty of guys who get married and get into fights and do all sorts of fucked up shit. I mean, this is part of where the divorce rate comes in.
And that means they get into war. And that is some...
Yeah, well, they've worked out that one big part of their audience is reactionary guys who are repulsive to women because they hate women, because they say all sorts of horrible things and think that it's gay to wipe your ass. And rather than saying, maybe you need to learn to respect women, the idea is to come up with some sort of big, it's a social catastrophe that these repugnant guys aren't getting laid, because otherwise you'd have to tell them, yeah, actually you're demographically in a very small minority of reactionaries, and you're repulsive to the very people you would like to get laid with.
Something that has happened throughout history, and as long as
And these guys will never say that, because part of their grift is claiming that there's this silent silent majority of people who think just like them and just like their audience, and they tell their audience this. This is why, because otherwise, when you have things like Hollywood having like trans representation and LGBT representation and Little Mermaid's black and all this other stuff that these pricks pretend to be angry about, then it just makes sense because, Hollywood's trying to make money, and the way you make money is by appearing to share the values of the majority of the people you're trying to take money off of. Whereas, but they can't say that because it screws up all of their entire narrative.
we have young men that are not married and can't meet women, they have no reason to settle down. Like you're saying, men don't have a reason to settle down. Women give men the reason to chill out because they want to hang out with the girl, they want to get laid, they want to hang out with their wife, whatever. If they don't have that reason, they want to go out and get buck wild. That's what happens.
These fucking guys. Like, these guys are telling us so much about themselves, and all of it makes me want to have, like, some sort of a tracker on them, so I can remain at least half a mile away from every one of them at all times.
And my point is that we're seeing this data showing 12th grade boys are skewing conservative. And
they're not skewing conservative, though. 23%, they're skewing neither. 23%, 77% said they're neither. Either I don't know or I'm neither. And none of the articles I've been able to find has actually broken that down further. It would be very interesting to know. But just I don't know does not mean leaning conservative either.
12th grade girls are skewing liberal, and give that a few years and the women are going to drift towards the men, not the other way around.
Yes, but even assuming that's true, assuming that, girls and women are just so fucking malleable that we're all gonna change our entire political worldview in order to sleep with 23% of assholes.
It's possible. Dave Smith has a great bit, which I will not do justice, so I will not even try.
Good.
But it was about how his wife, she finds him in this alley. He's an alley cat, and then she just lays out milk and slowly lures him into the house. And I feel
except that's the exact opposite of what Tim is saying. What Tim is saying is that you find this alley cat, and this alley cat's just out in the alley, and rather than coming into the house, the alley cat lures the woman, I guess, or are they both cats in this? I don't know. To be living in the fucking gutter with the alley cat.
I feel like that's the problem, is that when you have a more leftist leaning woman, they're not going to put out that saucer of milk because they're not interested in attracting the
Wow, he just he accidentally got there. That's right, we're not putting out the saucer of... If I put out a saucer of milk and I find fucking Tim Pool or any of these pricks looking at it, I'm putting fucking strychnine in that milk.
The alley cat male. So, like, when will that trend change where the women actually want to settle down? And I'm not sure that it will happen. I don't know.
I think they are way more open to it than society.
I think the issue is this.
Well, okay, we're going to definitely get a wrong take now.
Young men are object-oriented, typically. Young women are subject-oriented, typically. That
means that when you're programming a young man, you have to use different classes. You have to make sure that you have your global classes, you have your local classes, and there's a lot of difficulty when you're defining functions. See, and this is why I never really... I'm crap at programming any programming language that is from this century. Because I'm not good at object-oriented.
He's going to find himself hanging out with a bunch of...
Yeah, it is always the 50 for these pricks.
Other guys skateboarding. They're going to be... So his draw will be...
God, this guy is just... he is like... He really is just a fucking 12-year-old boy's idea of a cool guy.
Want to go skateboard with my friends. Young women, their draw will be, I want to engage in socialization.
But going skateboarding with friends is socialization. Like, that's doing things with people, that's socializing. If you're going skateboarding with your friends, that's socializing. If you're going to have a cup of coffee and chat with your friends, that's socializing too. It's all fucking socializing.
The men are off skateboarding, all with each other, sharing ideas, making jokes, being
Yes, that's what's called socializing.
offensive, and being guys. They're skewing conservative. They're listening to Jordan Peterson. They're listening to Andrew Tate.
Probably not.
One day, at the park, you've got a handful of young guys skateboarding, and a handful of girls, and the guys are like, hey, these girls are pretty attractive. Then the girls are going to reach some kind of impasse with, wow, they, like, one of those guys was playing an Andrew Tate video.
Yeah, with the fucking, the rapist and human trafficker prick. And why is that going to be an impasse? You just get the fuck out.
We can't be associated with that.
Yeah, because somebody like that, you'd be constantly having to hold on to your drink.
One of those women is going to be like, I kind of want to be hanging out with some of these guys. Like, I want to.
What makes you think that, though?
We are social creatures.
Yes, but why is it only going to be these guys in the skate park? I mean, like, if I'm at the park hanging out with my friends, and there's some guys hanging out, and I come a little bit closer as we're walking around, enjoying the weather or whatever, and they're talking, like, approvingly about Andrew Tate's latest video, we're going someplace else.
More so than the men are. That means...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is not hard. They're trying to act like... And the thing is, the skewing... They're using this word skewing. They do not know what this word skewing means. What, I mean... Because if you actually... You hear the stuff, like, the Fox News version of this, and it's like, wow, more teenage boys are identifying as conservative than ever. And it's like, okay, how many? Well, we're not going to tell you, but it's a lot. And then you find the actual numbers and it's 23%. Their fucking historic result is 23%.
that there's going to be competition among the women, or in terms of socializing, to go to these guys.
Why would there be, though? Why would there be competition? I mean, is this an apocalyptic world where these guys are the only guys around? Because let me just say, if those guys were the only guys around, I still wouldn't hang out with them. But, I mean, why wouldn't they just go to the 77% of other guys who don't watch Andrew Tate, or at the very least think Andrew Tate sucks?
This is why, like you mentioned, women become more conservative when they get married. That same poll, I think...
That is not... Again, that is literally not what it says. They didn't say, it doesn't say women become more conservative when they get married. It says the women who get married tend to be more conservative, statistically, than the women who don't. I mean, this is the same nonsense that you get around the idea that people get, older, they move to the right as they grow older. Which actually, what it comes down to is that people with more money live longer. And so the higher the age cohort you're in, the more likely it is to have a higher percentage of right-wing ghouls, because those are the people who live who live that long.
It's going to happen, and it's going to realign young women towards more moderate and conservative views.
Why would it? I mean, so...
To God's ears, man. I don't know. We'll see.
I think when men and
I mean, he's setting his audience of, like, fucking teenage incels up for some serious disappointments right now.
and interact, especially when they get married, a lot of stuff changes. I mean, studies bear out that when couples have kids, they become more religious. They attend church service more regularly.
Yeah, again, no. It says that the couples that have kids, first of all, the married couples, that's already going to have a higher percentage of conservatives, because right-wingers feel there's some sort of obligation. They're more likely to feel there's an obligation to actually get married in order to have sex. And they're also more likely to feel that there's an obligation to have kids. And also, they're more likely to have the money to afford to consider having kids, which a lot of people don't. So, I mean, they're, like, treating this as if these studies are concerning the same people. They're not.
There are stuff that I think when you are a single individual, you don't prioritize in your life, because you know,
It's not as important.
right. Your goals are just different. But as soon as you start having this intense bond to someone else through marriage and having children with them, everything shifts. And so it's just interesting that it's reaching teenage boys.
Except it really clearly isn't, because 77% of them. I mean, if it actually were reaching teenage boys, then the fucking right-wing media would not be over the moon that they manage 23%.
And the decisions that they make, like you're saying, by the time they're seniors in college, will be very different than the 2 generations before them.
Yeah. Well, and I think my hope is that there's it's quite evident to me that there's a lot of sadness and loneliness and purposelessness and
Purplelessness?
rudderlessness. I'm going to stop saying this. This is too hard. Amongst young people in this country, and like,
Oh, well, I wonder if that's something to do with the fact that the climate is collapsing, and they're the like 4th generation now since like the 1970s. Maybe it's the 3rd. It doesn't make it. Who has actually seen the prospects of a decent life decrease because things have been skewing towards suck for everybody born since about 1971.
so much of our, I mean, just
And meanwhile, we've got a ruling class who act like nothing is going on, and they have business as usual in the middle of a pandemic and a climate crisis and all this other shit. And, you know, you've got people like this who are just encouraging Nazis.
empirically speaking, there's so much of what humans' passion and purpose is existing is to be a parent, to be a father, a mother. And I just pray that, like, even though I'm not religious, I pray that people will find that pathway to purpose once again.
Well, is that the only purpose you can think of, is to, like, reproduce? Like, you think people who don't reproduce have no sense of purpose? Like, I have not reproduced. I don't intend to. I have nieces, and that is just wonderful. I highly recommend aunthood to anyone who is considering it. I don't know that it actually works like that, but in any case, it's wonderful. I have wonderful nieces. I have not reproduced. I have plenty of sense of purpose. I am also really kind of shitty at managing to actually get all of my sense of purpose implemented into actually doing the things. But I have plenty of sense of purpose, and it did not have to come from reproducing.
Because it's quite clear to me that there's a lot of people that are desperate.
Yeah, and I think the purposeless feeds are our culture's self-obsession, right? Like,
True.
If you have nothing to do or work on, you tend to just be completely obsessed with whatever's happening inside your own head.
Yes.
Which,
narcissistic, egotistical,
Right.
Yeah, it's sort of like these people here.
and also psychotic. I mean, like, you basically go crazy.
Right, and you start to think like, well, everyone seems happier than I am, and it's because you're not living for fulfillment. I mean,
Except, what is these people, it's like their idea of fulfillment, the only kind of fulfillment they're willing to acknowledge. Last time I checked, Tim Pool isn't married. Tim Pool, let me just make sure I'm right about that. Maybe it's changed. But last I checked, is Tim Pool married? Okay, Tim Pool is currently in an alleged relationship with Alison Neubauer, though neither has formally acknowledged the relationship. Yeah, I wouldn't want to admit to being in a relationship with Tim Pool either. But, yeah, I mean, and he's sitting here talking about the only purpose, he's got all these people, and it's like the only purpose in life is, like, marriage and reproduction, and, like, everybody in here clearly has another purpose in life because they're doing this horrible, horrible stream.
the things that the emotional gratification, I can't talk at all. The emotional
Yeah, that's actually better.
gratification of achieving something is so important to the human psyche that if we live in a culture where you just get handed a lot of stuff, to Tim's earlier point,
No, who's getting handed a lot of stuff? I wasn't handed a lot of stuff. The welfare state more or less disappeared by the time I could have had a use for it. I'm like, what do you mean handed a lot of stuff? There's no handing going on. This is like, what is this, the 1990s when there's still AFDC and there's something resembling a social safety net? Like, people on Snap just got fucking taken off it. A friend of mine who's on Snap, which is like luncheon vouchers, a supplemental nutrition program for people outside of the U.S. He had his Snap cut by 90 fucking percent just now. Who's getting handouts?
Then you never feel that true satisfaction. It's very difficult to find a direct.
What if there's other kinds of true satisfaction, though? I experienced true satisfaction from making a really good arrabbiata sauce. I experienced true satisfaction when when I managed to do a 3D animation for, say, the video I'm doing on analyzing sources and media literacy and stuff. And the computer animation that I came up with works. There's all sorts of places to get true satisfaction. It is like literally the least of it is, marriage and procreation and shit, but it's like the only thing that they're willing to acknowledge as a form of satisfaction, even as they very clearly have other kinds of satisfaction in their lives, or they wouldn't be doing what they're doing right now.
Direction for your life because you can't find something that makes you feel fulfilled.
And largely because there's no self-sacrifice involved in any of their behaviors. And if you're not ever doing anything...
Wait, what are you talking about? You look at the people born after like 1970, Gen X, millennials, all these fucking names we come up with for this bullshit. And there's a lot of self-sacrifice. There are all these networks of, especially if you look at the more marginalized segments. And of course, economic marginalization has been increasing as well, generationally. And you see a lot of self-sacrifice. You all see all sorts of solidarity and networks of care and, people who will, like, donate to a fucking, to somebody's PayPal or something like that too, if they're out of money and they can't get anything to eat. There's all sorts of, self-sacrifice. Look at the people who have risked everything to struggle against Cop City in Atlanta, for example. That's self-sacrifice right there. Let's hope that it's self-sacrifice that does not actually involve them getting convicted on those bullshit charges. But these people, they see no self-sacrifice because they're looking at, like, the assholes they hang out with, who all actually, the sort of people who read Atlas Shrugged and said this is a model for how to live, and don't believe in self-sacrifice because they believe in sponging off others.
For others, it's very hard to feel any sense of value.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
I guess we'll see. The one thing I think that matters, too, is we bring up quite a bit that... in the 2000s, conservatives just had more kids. Yeah. So we're seeing...
Yeah, and of course, famously, your political leanings are genetic.
This trend, very likely due to just sheer numbers.
Yeah, well, and that trend will maintain, if not grow.
Absolutely.
Wait a second. Okay, in the 2000s, conservatives were having more kids? And that is... Okay, and even buying this incredibly shitty logic where... Yeah, if, right-wingers have kids, that means that the kids are automatically going to be right-wingers. The net result of that is that 12th grade boys, 77% don't identify as conservative, and 23% do. So it's seeming like maybe it doesn't work out that way.
Yeah. The liberals are more likely to abort their kids and sterilize their kids. Right. That's it. Mm-hmm. You can't beat math, baby.
No. That trajectory is going...
Oh, yeah, I love that he just kind of put that in there, sterilize their kids. First of all, that's not... He's talking about gender-affirming care. And that's, first of all, not how that works. And second of all, since it's life-saving, see, when they actually do the gender-affirming care for the kids, which for kids is mostly just adopting a new name and new pronouns and getting them a new fucking wardrobe or whatever... It means the kid's more likely to actually live to adulthood.
Going to go parabolic potentially.
I've seen too many of these stories, right? And I know the feminists are going to lose their minds over this.
Oh, I can't wait. What am I going to lose my mind over, Tim?
There's the New York Post where the woman was like, I'm struggling to find a man who makes the same amount of money as me. I'm telling you, like, We see these trends in data. It doesn't mean it's absolute.
Yeah, wow. What do you mean trends in data? That's one anecdote from a right-wing newspaper. And why are feminists going to be losing their minds over the fact that people have trouble? Why is it specifically feminists are going to lose their minds over one anecdote from the New York Post anyway?
Absolute. Doesn't mean I'm correct.
Of course.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, we can more or less assume you're not correct, Tim.
100%. I'm saying I see this as a possibility. You've got these women who are trying to be with men, but it's like, you're 35, you make $60,000 a year, and you're trying to date a 35-year-old guy who makes $60,000 a year. Guess what? That 35-year-old guy who makes $60K a year, he could be doing better, but he's dating a 28-year-old.
So what?
He's got money, he's got an apartment. He's not. Why would he date you? And
Well, maybe because he likes you. Maybe because he appreciates your personality. I don't know, Tim. Maybe there's a human aspect to this that is not just completely, just totally fucking mercenary. I mean, his fucking world is so bleak. Like, so a guy who already has a flat is not going to want to date a woman who has a flat because the only reason that you date a woman is that she has a place to live? Like, really? This is actually worse than the guys who think the only thing women have to offer is the getting of the laid. This is somehow worse than that.
And that bothers feminists quite a bit, but that...
Why does it bother feminists? I've not heard any feminists talk about this. I'm hanging around enough feminists that if this bothered feminists, I think I would have heard about it, Tim.
That's the New York Post reporting it. That's
Right?
happening.
No, that's what
They reported one case of one woman, and this is assuming, which we can't, that Tim Pool remembers it correctly.
Of course.
I mean,
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson talked about the IQ scale for women, right? Like, it's much harder for high IQ women to find partners
Which is just bullshit.
because they need someone who's smarter than them. Like,
Well, why do we need someone who's smarter than we are, and what the... Like, what?
I've always said it would be difficult for me to date someone who is less conservative than I am
Well, okay, so what?
because it would feel like a mismatch, right?
What?
It would be a mismatch because you have completely different values.
Why is it harder for women to find, if they're high IQ, to find a high IQ mate? I don't understand.
Yeah, because you don't understand it. Guy who looks like he'd probably like hang out outside of a gay bar to beat up the patrons. The reason you're having trouble understanding it is that it literally makes no fucking sense.
Is there
'Cause
fewer high IQ mates?
Yeah.
There's less men that are intelligent?
No,
No comment.
no.
If-
For them to choose from.
That doesn't make it better, Tim.
If you have to
Oh,
be
sure.
smarter
It
than
narrows
female,
their. It narrows
there's not
their,
as many.
Right.
of them,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
It's
If
not
you're
that
like-
they don't exist.
So this is the thing. Like a really dumb woman,
She's got lots of options.
but
These guys, it's really hard to understand why they have trouble getting laid.
it's easy to date up, and
Right.
you know.
Right.
That's an interesting thing. Like, how do you describe it for men? Women want to date up. That's what they call it, right?
Yeah, it's okay. This is some bullshit about the term incels and MRAs like to use is hypergamy. He's like dumbing it down here, but the term he's looking for is hypergamy, and it's bullshit. There is literally no evidence that this is actually a thing.
Yeah.
Someone who is more powerful, more attractive, wealthier, more capable.
Crossing up, men date across and down.
Men is across and down.
Men will date across and
So they don't
women
want
that
a
are
woman that's smart.
Well, I mean, Jesus dated a cross,
not
but I think it was a blind date. I think he got fixed up on that one. Yeah, well, Timcast is just pretty much pure free association. By the way, if you don't mind my asking, Raven, where are you based? Are you based in the U.S., Canada, other part of the world? Ich weiß es einfach nur gerne, weil das ja ein vielsprachiger Stream ist. Y así puedo, bueno, adaptarme un poco lingüísticamente.
just smarter, but social mobility,
Yeah, that's
money, and stuff like
socioeconomically.
that. So like if if you get with a girl and she doesn't make more money than you, one of the best predictors one of the high predictors of divorce is if she does make more money.
Well, yes, but not just because. See, these guys will look at that and they'll be like, "Oh, it's because she makes more money. That's the problem." But no, the actual problem is that it isn't a problem. It's just that if you make more money, that means you have. If you're the one who makes more money in the relationship, and the relationship sucks, you have less keeping you in there. Because you're more likely to be okay on your own economically, because we're in capitalism, you see, and in capitalism we're constantly having to work out whether we're able to survive based on certain economic factors. One of them is, if it's two incomes versus one.
If she starts making more money, she'll probably
One state over from me. I hear you guys over in Pittsburgh actually got a fair bit of that disgusting shit out of East Palestine when that fucking train derailed. Feeling cute may let a Roman nail me later. Sounds about right.
you're probably going to end up in a divorce.
The left hates
So-
the data on this.
But yeah,
Why do I hate the data on this? I didn't hate the data on this. This data on this just makes perfect sense. I mean, it's the same reason why people are more likely to quit their jobs if they have decent out-of-work benefits or savings. It's the exact same reason. You're more likely to stay in a shitty relationship and a shitty job if it's the only way you can make ends meet. So obviously having more, if you've got more money, like he just says the left hates this. He doesn't, I'd love to know where he like has his finger on the pulse on the left. That anyone...
yeah, because it's reality, and
Because
hate that.
the communists don't want to accept that men are attracted to appearance and women, I should say this, that
Wait,
men have a tendency to be attracted towards appearance.
communists don't want to accept that men are attracted towards appearance? You were just talking about how divorces are supposedly... I say supposedly because I haven't actually seen these studies. I can see why it would be the case, but I don't actually know for certain that it is the case. Because I don't trust a word these motherfuckers say. And now it's like communists won't accept that men are attracted to looks, and women are also attracted to looks. And, looks are just sort of a thing that people tend to be attracted to. Like, why would communists... I'm as much of a communist as anybody. Like, I don't see why I'm supposed to be pissed off about that, and I also don't see how it follows from what you were just saying, Tim.
To a great degree, and women have a tendency to be attracted towards power and status to a great degree.
Which boils down to men are attracted to women that look able to produce offspring. And women are attracted to men that look able to protect them.
Yep.
Which is nonsense.
It's that. So if you're rich, you got a lot of money, you have resources, you can protect women. You're big and strong. You're physically.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, if you've got your own fucking resources, why do you care? I mean, it's interesting because I'm translating Kollontai right now. I'm translating Alexandra Kollontais 1909 book, which has somehow been untranslated until now. The full text of it, and she's talking about how the economic changes are leading to shifts in the way marital relationships, and how particularly amongst the independent women who are in higher income jobs have a totally different approach to relationships, are much less likely, this is in 1909 mind you, are much less likely to be particularly obsessed with getting married or something like that, and they're more likely to be into free love, which was a thing then as well. It's gone through different iterations, but the idea's been there for a while. The term's certainly been there for a while. And the thing is, if you can actually get the means to assure your survival yourself, and you already have done that, then why are you going to stay in a relationship that is otherwise not congenial to you?
fit, you can protect women.
Wait, so you're telling me that the immutable laws of human nature remain intact?
No, he's telling you that he watched some bullshit from Jordan Peterson and he remembers it.
You know, let's talk about men and women and penises and vaginas. You know who's got...
God, I did not need to hear this guy say penis or vagina. Because this guy looks like he's got like a collection of them. You know, like some people have like deer heads in their den or whatever, and he's got like just a bunch of fucking genitals taxidermied up on little fucking pedestals in his den.
Got what? You know, because
It's getting confusing these days.
I
to be honest.
apparently...
Fuck you. It's not that confusing.
Well, I was just thinking about it because I was like, have I dated a woman that's smarter than me? And,
Have you dated a woman at all, is what I want to know. I mean,
but then I'm like, am I too narcissistic to even acknowledge if I've dated a woman that's smarter than me?
Have you-
yes, probably. You're on the Tim Pool cast. You are almost certainly too full of yourself to acknowledge that anyone could be. And yet, it is very clear. I mean, now, I would say he is unlikely to have podcasted with somebody cleverer than him, because he has actually tended to have just the slightest tiny bit of insight, unlike the rest of the people on here, the rest of the men on there. Anyway, just the very slightest bit of insight there.
You ever?
He has a hell of a lot more self-awareness than any of them there, though that doesn't take much. It doesn't take much self-awareness to have more self-awareness than Tim Pool serial killer guy and what's her name?
Have you ever had an attraction to someone who sometimes feels like wearing pants?
What? Who sometimes feels like wearing pants? Like, as opposed to what, Tim?
Yes.
That makes you bisexual.
These guys, I mean, it's a real mystery how these guys have trouble getting laid. I mean, obviously it has to be some sort of conspiracy with dating app algorithms or whatever. It must be a social crisis that these guys aren't getting laid. I mean, because you can't explain it any other way. I mean, just look at them. How could you not? How could you resist? If you had earplugs in and perhaps also like a blindfold.
Wait. I've
I
had
thought
girls
the
who
tower
have
gang
worn
made him
pants.
bisexual.
I've had girls who have worn pants. You tricked
no,
me.
no.
Like, wow, like what the fuck? Like, what decade is this from?
Oh no,
You
men
tricked
wear
me.
pants, women wear dresses.
Oh.
And if
Yeah, like, and sometimes men wear dresses, like Michael Knowles has, for example. And women often wear fucking trousers. And it has nothing to do with sexual orientation. Like, I mostly wear skirts. I'm a lesbian. I just find skirts more comfortable. I find it easier, like, finding trousers that fit my waist, like match my waistline, because I have a very high waist, and most of that jeans and shit that you find outside of like specialty like hand sewn kind of places tend to be much more low rising. So like, what the hell is this? What I mean, what decade have they beamed to us from?
if a woman sometimes decides to wear pants, then she's
Pantses.
pants. She's non-binary, right?
Man.
Because
Really
we
question
know.
What the fuck? Like, this is the sort of bullshit that I remember, like, in primary school. Except we didn't have the term non-binary yet, unfortunately. Life would have been so much easier in so many ways if these terms had been available at the time. But there were all, I mean, this is the sort of shit you would, like, make one of those, like, I don't remember what they're called. You fold up some, paper and you go toot 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 toot, and there's different words in it, and it's a game or something like that. This is like something like that I remember from fucking primary school in the 80s, and this bunch of guys in their 30s to 50s are fucking busting their shit over it.
My wardrobe choices tonight.
Yeah, well, Hannah Claire over here is a guy.
Oh, interesting.
Just one of the boys.
Because
No.
he is
My
wearing pants.
bro,
Because
Hannah
he
Claire.
is wearing pants.
That's right.
Oh my goodness.
Jesus.
I think one time I did a podcast with Seamus, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't think women should be able to wear dresses, but I realize I've sort of lost this battle."
Dresses?
Shouldn't, or shouldn't be able to wear.
Well, you see, and okay, you're a woman who has decided to be in this group of to make your career amongst these people. Does it ever make you wonder if maybe you should go someplace else? If maybe you would find that you were more respected elsewhere?
Pants.
Like, I mean, because this is actually a thing. This has been, like, going back, periodically, over the past several years. You'll see, oh, good night, demand better entertainment. So, like, these, like, right-wing women will be on social media expressing their frustration because the men that they've surrounded themselves with hate women and say horrible things and give them zero respect and expect them to be basically domestic slaves and sex slaves and shit. And and they don't like take a moment to say, well, maybe this is what happens when you specifically select the milieu you're going to be in for people who hate women. Like, I mean, how can you sit here listening to these three fucking guys talking about what women want, not letting you get a word in edgewise for like the first 10 minutes, saying nonsense like this, and not say, well, maybe I would be happier if I went someplace else?
Of course, Seamus said that. Who else?
Quick shout out to Seamus. I will be on his show on Thursday. Check that out.
Wait, he doesn't want women wearing pants?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just a totally normal thing for a guy to say in this year of 2023.
But he realizes
So
he's
he
lost
agrees with
that
the last
battle.
on that one. Like, as soon as you put the... So
Yeah, and on the other hand, these guys, see, I mean, she's laughing at this because it's a ridiculous thing to say, and these guys are sitting here, notice they're not laughing the same way. They're not necessarily seeing it as quite as funny, because they're saying, wow, he can be much more openly misogynistic than we thought we could be, so maybe we should up our game. Sort of like Tim Pool decided to start celebrating mass shootings when they started targeting trans people.
if the argument is that social constructs define whether you're a man or a woman, that's literally the point. Yeah. So
Then no, that's not literally the point. I mean, that's not how social constructs work. Because it's never been, the social construct has never been, oh, that's what, they were doing a transphobia and I didn't even notice. I thought they were just being complete schmucks. I mean, they were doing that, but they were also doing a transphobia. Because they're claiming that based on dress standards from about 1910, because women were, I mean, everyone has this idea that women weren't wearing trousers in the 50s. It's bullshit. There were all sorts of trousers in the 50s and the 40s too, and the 30s, actually. You couldn't get into a lot of nice restaurants wearing trousers in those days, but a lot of women were wearing them. So these guys are hearkening back to some shit that they don't even understand and didn't exist. But based on those imagined fictional dress standards of the 1950s, they're saying if you wear a particular garment of clothing, that somehow changes your gender. Which, like, the idea being, I guess, that they're trying to claim that that's what trans people say, but trans women wear trousers a lot, Tim, actually. There are butch trans women, even. Like, seriously, just shut the fuck up, Tim.
like, someone who is male decides one day to
Hey,
wear a dress.
KKM.
If you're straight, you should be attracted to them. That's the argument we get from the left.
No, it actually isn't, you complete schmuck.
But it literally is.
No, it isn't. It literally isn't.
For watching this clip from the Timcast.
You're not welcome. Wow, that took some interesting turns. That didn't at all make sick barrel up into my throat at all. And I had gone into this thinking, well, it was that survey was the derail, because I figured we were going to do this and then we were going to get back to the thing about Vosh not knowing shit about Africa. But it is almost time for me to turn back into a little seagull. And let me just say, there is a Discord. A Discord exists, and that is a place where you can keep in touch with me in between. It's also where you can also get notifications when I put out new videos and stuff, and also where if you have ideas for things that you would like me to react to on stream, you can, I would love it if you were to, like, link me to them and stuff, because I'm sure there are all sorts of interesting things we could be looking at, and it saves me work if other people find them. So, yeah, feel free to join the Discord. I hope to see you there. Tell Polly thank you again. Thank you for the shout out, by the way. Oh, Shakespeare shouted me out on the Polly People channel. Ooh, cool. Okay, I got a message here in my Discord. I was just kind of looking at it. And Shakespeare, who is a friend of the stream, he shows up every once in a while on here. Okay. He's who shouted me out on Polly People's channel. She's watching my stream from earlier, and she'd like to speak with me if I'd like. And that's cool, because, I mean, I'm looking... Nobody's heard of me, and I'm looking to be a little bit more widely heard of. You know, get a few more subscribers, maybe, because I'm trying to build this sort of thing as a sideline to my translation work, right alongside the crowdfunded translations that I'm doing and all that stuff. So I am looking to grow, so that's really cool. Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm gonna join the Polycule, Polly People's, Discord. But you can join my Discord, and I would love to see you there. I'm just sending a quick message to Shakespeare. So, yes, definitely thanking Shakespeare for that. And with that, I think it's like an awkward amount of time. It's like 4 minutes to 1. There's no way I talk too much to get through any video, no matter how short, in 4 minutes. Unless it's like 2 seconds of Tim Pool like falling on his ass from a skateboard, maybe. But even then, I feel like I would probably talk too much to manage it in 4 minutes. So I think I am going to just thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Polly People and Shakespeare, for shouting me out. Thanks to all the new people, Demand Better Entertainment, Raven, and all of my regulars. It's lovely to see you. Yeah, I have to say, I mean, it's just very nice having a lively chat. Have a good night, and I will be back. I will be doing some more of the translating streams in the afternoons, US Eastern Time. I've got 3,500 words left in Chapter 2 of Kollonthai's Social Basis of the Female Question. So, in the afternoons over the next week or so, just check my YouTube channel, check my Twitch channel. I may be streaming, because I've been live streaming the translation process and talking about it, and watching North Korean TV and talking about that in the background. So, have a good night. Thank you to everyone. And I look forward to seeing you next week.